I want to go to the last section of the film, which is the best section. We're back at Restoration Hardware, and we're back at this feast. It's been provided by Old Country Town Buffet, and we're back at the banqueting table, and there's so much happening right here. It's unbelievable. I just have a couple questions with this. How do I get to enjoy more meals at this feast, and am I really invited back? Tracy, can you start us off? What are some thoughts that you have on that?
Yeah, I know it is. It's like there's a lot you can go. Yes, you're always invited back. And how do I keep enjoying meals? I think you just keep going. You keep going back to the moment in the cave where you had that moment with God. And I think of David so much, right? Like,
wow.
I love the Psalms. Like, it was Jesus's prayer book, by the way. Jesus knew the Psalms.
Yes.
Like
Right.
he's quoting the Psalms from the cross.
Right.
So there's something so beautiful about thinking about, King David. He's penning these words like, how, you're so far away. How long am I going to experience this? But by the end of the psalm, usually he's like totally changed, and he's like, but God, my hope is in you. You know, it's like this moment, and I think you just keep coming back. And it's Aristotle's right. It's like you are what you repeatedly do. What you keep doing, you're going to be in a positive way. We think of it sometimes negatively.
Right.
Not for performance sake, but I'm going to keep coming back to the table. And guess what? I'm going to find myself, I have a place at that table.
Right.
I'm just going to keep coming back. I'm not going to give up. I'm not going to let things keep tormenting me. I'm going to be like David. I might have that moment where I'm like, God, where are you?
Right.
But before the end of that conversation with God, I'm going to be like, but God, you're good.
Right.
Yeah.
Remember when you set me free before? Remember that moment where you encountered me? Remember that moment that you had or I had or we all have had with God? I'm just going to keep letting myself go back to that place. Just keep going back to God.
Wow.
Just keep going.
It's amazing.
It's not, excellence is not, Aristotle says, excellence is not an act, it's a habit.
Wow.
You are what you repeatedly do. Just keep going to God.
So good.
And it really is a beautiful thing when we can go, okay, I'm just going to keep bringing my pain.
Wow.
Because we think, okay, one time I bring it to Jesus, one time I go to the altar,
Right.
one time I have a prayer with God.
Right.
I'm good. I'm good for life.
Right.
I like, and many of them said on thing, I stopped watching this, I stopped doing this, but it's, man, it's a journey.
Right.
And I'm going to keep going to God.
Wow.
And I'm going to keep going to the table. And I'm going to keep believing, no matter how I feel, no matter what my emotions tell me, my feelings tell me, I have a place at that table.
Brilliant.
And I'm going to keep going and
So
finding
beautiful.
God right there, waiting for me.
That is amazing. It makes me think of a quote from Bruce that I have written down here. It's not as, this quoting Bruce here, it's not as important that something gets fixed as nothing is hidden. And now you have this ability to keep coming. And I'm going to keep bringing my pain. I'm going to keep, I love what you're saying. Just keep showing up.
Yeah.
And so the simple answer is yes.
Yeah, and I think there's a realization, a moment that I have to always in my own life come back to is like, you weren't kicked off the table. We were, you know what I'm saying? So to think like, hey, how can I get back? It's like, nobody kicked you out.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? Like, no, this is your table. Like, I don't, what do you mean come back? So I honestly like, and you can run that metaphor, to its furthest iteration, but it is something that I go back to. It's like, no, you weren't put out. When you were brought in, and that was it.
Period.
And that was it. So if ever you're away from the table, it's like, no, we didn't kick you out. Like, sit down.
Right.
So that in itself is another reminder of God's grace and his calling and his love being placed on me. And for me, I think of like I'm a fan of anything that's gonna make me shed something else and just cling to the cross or like cling to him.
Right.
Anything that's gonna make me do that. So even if it's pain, even if it's like suffering, even if it's like me thinking about my shortfalls, like I'm like, that's dope because that's making me remember that the Father gave me a place at the table.
Wow.
So that's a blessing. You know what I'm
Right,
saying?
right,
Yeah.
right. It's amazing. Bruce, what about you?
I keep thinking about the safety of the place, of the table. And I think about in Hebrews where God is saying, hey, come on in and tell me all about your issues and I will give you mercy and grace to help you in your time of need, which is like all the time.
Yeah.
Right.
And this is that place. You know, what if there was a place that was so safe that the worst of me could be known and I'd discover I was loved more, not less, in the telling of it.
Wow.
What if there was that, well, this is that place. This is part of the feast.
Wow.
And so I never have to leave the table. It doesn't matter what my issues are.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter how many times they're repeated. I'm safe here. Doesn't mean it's necessarily soft, like you were saying,
Yeah.
because that will take you to the cross. But it's a safe place, not a soft place.
Wow. It's amazing.
One of the things I was thinking about in terms of that scene is that, certainly we're welcomed at the table, but I also believe that we're needed at the table. You see the scar that came from
Right.
the cave and the
Yeah.
jumping off. You see the scar, and the scar is healing, right? But it's still there, and I think we need to be at the table to remind people that we have survived and that we have overcome with the power of God. It's like my testimony is not a testimony of perfection. It's not
Right.
a testimony of I did all the right things, so
Right.
I get to be at the table. The reason I'm at the table is because I get to share the story with everyone else at the table that says, me too. I know what it's like.
Right.
And that's, to me, the most powerful, sacred thing that we can say to each other. But if we're not at the table, number one, being honest, because we know the table say, like, we gotta share our stories. We
Right.
gotta look at our scars as not a source of shame, but a source of survival. That we learned something in the cave. We have overcome something. There is a new strength in us. I always talk about the sense of when our hearts are, there's this scientific research that says we have gold in our bodies, like literally gold. And the majority of the gold in our bodies resides in our heart. And I think it's a really interesting metaphor, like when our hearts are broken, it's actually the gold can come out. And we forget about it, like we didn't go through all that crap, all that pain, all that blood, all that banging in our head. There's a point about it releasing the gold. It's given, I know in my own pain and my own suffering, my own brokenness, it has given me a new level of compassion for others. It has given me more empathy for others. It is, I can sit at a table with somebody who is in the cave and go, me too. And so the table is a sense of like, this is our stories. We have something to offer. Not that we get to sit there, though we do.
Right.
We're needed at the table.
Wow. I loved how you could sense the thrill of the father.
Yeah.
Like, I fought for this thing.
Yeah.
Everybody better eat up. You know, like, I've been out rescuing some folks. You know, and now my family's back together. And you could sense it wasn't just the father, but I love the picture that everybody was happy.
Yeah.
Everyone this was right. The rightness that I felt in the beginning watching that first scene, I sensed it even further now because I know what it cost. I know the appreciation is up, the value is up. And I think that's what Jesus is talking about when he's like, listen, it's those that have been forgiven much, they're gonna love much.
Yeah.
So this guy's sitting at the table with a whole different paradigm. It's a whole different perspective. It's a whole different, you better appreciate what we got right here.
Yeah.
Are you thankful? You know, and appreciating his girl now.
Yeah.
Going like, man, I'm never gonna do that
Yeah.
again. Like,
Yeah.
I got eyes for only
Yeah.
you.
I
And
like the real you.
exactly. And just like, man, Dad, I love you. You just, it's a whole different appreciation after you've gone through failure. And I hope that when people are watching this movie, that they get a sense of going like, okay, I relate with this on every level except for the table. The feast at the end, I have yet to experience. And if you're telling me, what you're telling me is that God has actually been there the whole way through, and that because I got it at the beginning because I do believe that God wanted a relationship with me, but I ran. I bounced. I did my thing. But if you're actually inviting me into this feast, you pique my interest.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think what both of you are hinting on, or not hinting on, but saying is an incredibly important part of the Christian life. And like you said, it's the interpersonal part of it. It's that our faith, although it is very personal, it's not individual.
Never.
You know what I'm saying? And you are sitting around a table, and our part of our faith is not just God reconciling us to Him, but us to each other. You know what I mean? And like you said, there was a gap at the table.
Right.
Right. There's a gap here. You know what I'm saying? Like I want you in this place. You know what I'm saying? And your scars are testimony of the truth.
Right.
Which was like,
right.
Yeah, dude, that was super dumb. You know what I'm saying? Right. This is dumb. Yeah.
God take away my scars. Nah, you gonna stay with
Nah,
those.
dude, no, you need scars important. You know what I'm saying? But that as my sisters and my brothers and my family, as I'm sitting around the table, like I know I am a better human because Chad's in my life. You know what I'm saying? I'm a better human because, you know, Mike's in my life and because of what Mike has gone through. You feel me? And Mike is a better human because what I understand, you know what I'm saying, and what I've shown him. You know what I'm saying? So like we're getting a better understanding of the Father. Like I always say, like a better image of God. Like I need you to help me see Him clearer. Right. And understand the fullness of His love.
Yeah.
You understand? So like
Totally.
we are part of that story is we need to be reconciled to each other.
Yes, absolutely.
You know what I'm
And it's our stories collectively are a part of God's big story
Yes.
for the world.
Yes.
And then it makes it not about us.
Yes.
It's
Beautiful.
about God.
Beautiful.
But it is. It's us sharing our stories. It's us going, yeah, me too, or hey, I've gone through this, and then you can be there to help somebody else, or somebody's learned something that really impacts you. But it's not about us.
Right.
It's a collection
Right.
of these beautiful stories that God has been running after
Right.
us.
Right.
To go, come on! I have this big story for the world.
Totally.
I want to rescue all of it.
Yeah.
No matter the pain, no matter the shame, no matter whatever is going on. And that to me is you see that at that table.
Absolutely.
That to me is what's happening. It's a collection of stories that God was there every single moment.
Yep.
He was there through the whole journey, every painful part, triumphant part, God was
Yeah.
there. And then there you see it.
Yeah, they've had experience now. Again, that's why there's weight and gravity to what's happening this time, is because of experience. And the old saying is true, a man with an opinion is always at the disposal of a man with an experience.
Yeah.
And I tell you what, I know we talked about the prodigal son earlier, but the prodigal son would be sitting back at this feast,
Yeah.
ear to ear, going like, y'all can go chase, if you want to go chase that
let me
girl,
tell you something.
but
Yeah.
but I've got TLC in my head. Don't go chasing waterfalls, and it's gonna cost you.
Yeah.
But I'm staying right here. You can go ahead,
Right.
but I have experience. I've experienced the Father's love. I've experienced freedom in Christ. I've experienced forgiveness of sins, and because of my experience, I now want to go help other people that are in bondage. I now want to live a life of authenticity and vulnerability and genuine connectedness. It's the experience. And I think hopefully that's the goal of this film, and that's the result of this film, is that people will go like, you're inviting me into an experience.
Yeah.
And I'm open for that adventure.
Yeah.
This is not an event. Freedom is not an event. It's an adventure. It's an experience, experiencing the love of God.
It's an invitation to live fully human. It's an invitation to have a
Right.
flourishing life.
Wow.
None of it is bad. None of it is without hope and
Wow.
joy, and
Wow.
it's flourishing.
Right.
Every aspect of
Wow.
it. That's the invitation. Fully human.
Wow.
Yeah. I loved in the stories too, like in the testimonial parts where, like you brought up earlier, they finally show the spouse, right? Where in the one story where sister was like, "Oh no, we divorced." Like I didn't want to be around this dude for a while. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then I'm like, you can't skip that, like, cause that's not real life.
Yeah.
That's not real life. It's like real life is like, nah, there was some collateral damage, right? And then they came back to say, and then we remarried. You know what I mean? We came back in, and as I'm getting older, I'm like know more and more couples like that. You know what I'm saying? That were like, yeah, we divorced and got back together and had 3 more kids after. And I'm like, it's pretty epic, you know.
It's
but,
amazing.
But this just the reality of like, man, you know, life is not. There's no like. Now I'm doing my own plugging, right? This is a lyric on the album. Like that there's no like perfect villains or victims. It's just us. You know what I mean? And we're in this. We're here. I got blood on my hands. You have blood on your hands. You know, I can't this just, you know, superhero comic book motif of bad guys being all bad and good guys being, it's just not real. You know what I'm saying? Nah, it's like it's messy and we're sitting at this table and we're at the mercy of the Father and he just loves us regardless. And I'm not like,
true.
right? You know, to get even more big picture-y, you know, from again, in case you guys notice, I'm black, right? But like from that, when you know when you turn on the news and it's like, okay, yet another like black man, unarmed black man was like shot, right? The first question was, well, did he have a weapon? Was he a criminal? Does he have like a? Well, let's wait for that. You know what I'm saying? So what you're saying is you want your victim to be innocent. You want your victim to be a perfect victim, right? And because if there's something that they've done, then that means I don't have to sympathize with them. Right. And then that is so for that motif to work, that means that we have to believe that our officers are completely, you know, altruistic, right? But the truth is, no, they're both horribly flawed and desire and actually have a seat at the same table, right? And so the pain of this victim is he's still a victim, right? And this villain might still be a villain, but I got the same blood on my hands, right? And I have the same blood on that person's hands. So because at the end of the day, like you said, it's not about my story, it's not about my thing, it's about the fact that we get to sit at the Father's table.
That's it.
Yeah.
Wow.